Soraim Tovim. Good afternoon to all of you on the East Coast. Boker Tov and good morning to you on the West Coast. And Erev Tov to our panelists in Israel. I'm Nomi Colton-Max, the American Zionist Movement's Vice President of Programming, and I'm delighted that you have all joined us today for this important session. The AZM is comprised of 41 national Jewish Zionist organizations and works across a broad ideological, political, and religious spectrum, linking the American Jewish community together in support of Israel, Zionism, and the Jewish people. AZM is the U.S. Zionist Federation and the World Zionist Organization. Later this month will mark the one-year anniversary since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And over this past year, we have all learned, read, and participated in Zooms about what is happening in the Ukraine, on the borders, and in neighboring countries. Today, we're going to learn more about how the migration from the Ukraine, Russia, and other Russian-speaking countries has impacted Israel, and how these immigrants and refugees are doing in their new home. We have a jam-packed 75 minutes today, so let me get right to it and introduce our speakers. Shay Felber is the Vice President of Aliyah, Absorption, and Special Operations at the Jewish Agency. Alex Rift is the founder and CEO of the 1 Million Lobby. Juan Taifeld is the Chief Executive Officer of Gvahim. And Zharova is the head of the Israeli Friends of Ukraine. And Olga Kartashova is the founder of the Refugee Assistance Center. A few housekeeping notes before today's webinar. As you may have noticed, you're all muted, but I encourage you to ask questions in the Q&A section, and we will try to get to as many questions as time permits at the end of the presentation. Additionally, this webinar is being recorded and it will be available for viewing on the AZM website. And speakers, it is wonderful to have you all together, and we have much to discuss, so I'm going to be tough and keep you all to your allotted time so that we have time for the questions that are being sent to us. And now to our program. Shay Felber has had a long career at the Jewish Agency for Israel, including positions as assistant to the chairperson, director of partnerships, senior advisor to the director general, director of finance resource development in Israel, and the vice president of community relations. Before becoming the vice president for Aliyah, Absorption, and Special Operations in 2020, Shay was the Jewish Agency's vice president for community services worldwide. In that capacity, he was responsible for all of the organization's activities in Latin America, Europe, and Oceania, managing the agency's relationship with partners in each location's business development and program promotion. As the VP of Aliyah, Absorption, and Special Operations, Shay manages Aliyah from all over the world, including countries in distress, as well as the Jewish Agency's many programs to help new immigrants acclimate to Israel's society. Shay, the floor is yours.
Nomi, thank you very much. When I started my position, I asked, what does special operations mean? And I think that after a year to the war, I can definitely tell you what does it mean dealing with special operation when you have to rescue thousands of Jews from Ukraine and also now coming from Russia. With your permission, and thank you for AZM for inviting us to present our work in terms of Aliyah and Klita, and thank you for our partners over here that we work very closely together on a daily basis to ensure that the Olim will be able to come to Israel and to be integrated properly into the Israeli society. With your permission, I will have a presentation that I will share with you. I know it's been recorded, but I will encourage you that many of the things that I will say in this webinar should stay in this webinar. If certain things are more sensitive, I will let you know. So, Nomi, as you mentioned, the war started almost a year ago. Before the war, we have many preparation how to deal in case of emergency, but I think that no one really expected that the invasion will be in such strong power that it will create a situation where thousands of refugees will come from Ukraine and therefore from Russia. If you can move to the next slide, please, I will give you a glimpse of the numbers. Okay. From the war itself up to now, more than almost 72,000 Olim came from that region. The last time it happened was in almost 23 years ago in 2000. Those numbers not been seen in Israel for many, many years, as I mentioned before. For us, and I have to say, it's a blessing. Each Ole who's coming from this area is a contributor and supporting of the state of Israel. But not only that, this is our responsibility of the Jewish Agency and the State of Israel to make sure that every Jew that wants to leave the country will be able to make Aliyah, especially in time of crisis. 80 years ago, there was no country to absorb or Jews that were fleeing from the Nazis. Today, we have a strong, vibrant country that can support and absorb everyone who's facing the situation of this terrible war. The next slide, please. Yeah. So I gave you numbers up to now, but when I look to the future and how things will continue, I can definitely consider numbers over the last couple of months, and definitely we see that numbers will continue. So although it was a very busy year, I expect that the year to follow will continue to keep us very busy in making sure that everyone who wants to make Aliyah and to leave Ukraine or Russia will be able to do so. But it's not that simple to make Aliyah those days, especially in this area. And I will present you our challenges and how do we do it to make sure that they will come to Israel on a safe way. Next slide, please. Those are the numbers that we expect. As you can see, we have a low expectation and high expectation to the year to follow. Please, next slide. Sorry for that. So as you can see, from the beginning of the war, okay, and I have to say that in the first month of the war, we were focusing mainly on Ukraine. Thousands of refugees that have come to us, fleeing from the war, running away to the borders, mainly in Poland, Romania, Hungary, and also to the area of Moldova, actually running away. In the first couple of days, we saw people coming with suitcase. The days after, we saw just people coming with handbags, running away from the war, whatever they could upon themselves. So we activated the situation with more than 18 hotels in surrounding of the Ukraine, absorbed them at one stage more than 7,000 refugees, Jewish refugees, that we brought to Israel during the time of the war. Currently, we still operate hotels in Poland, in Hungary, in Moldova, because people want to make Aliyah and want to leave the Ukraine. The only way to do it is not through Ukraine, unfortunately. So they're coming to us in the borders where we take them, and then we transfer them safely to Israel. We also have refugees that are in the surrounding area of Ukraine, but they're not making Aliyah yet. So one of the activities we initiated in the last couple of months is to have Aliyah promotion activities for those who are in Europe, mainly in Austria, mainly in Germany, and to encourage those that don't know what they want to do. They're not sure they want to go back, to give them Israel as a vibrant option. Still, as you can see, you saw before, we still have around 300 to 400 Olim per month. This was still big numbers. Winter now in Ukraine, you can understand how difficult it is, and the war is not seen to the end. So Ukraine is one effort that we're doing, and we are continuing to do it. A month to the war, in middle of March, we started to realize that this is no longer a crisis or the Ukraine war. We saw that as a crisis of Russia as well. Look on the numbers of more than 112 Aliyah application from Russia. And so the numbers, more than 48 Olim came from Russia. When I've been asked all the time, what is the reason? Because there's no real war in Moscow. You don't see bombardments, but I can definitely tell you that what's happened today in Russia, in how people feel free to live their life, things have changed. So for those of you who remember the days of what we call Masach HaBarzel, the Iron Curtain, I definitely think that this is the situation now continuing in Russia. People are concerned. Freedom has been taken from people. There's no any connection with the West. Economy is severely affected. So many Jews feel that this time is for them to leave Russia. This is a place that for the future going to be only complicated. So when we saw the numbers increasing, we opened a call center in Moscow to make sure that all of the requests for Aliyah will be taken care of. Flights. Today, if you want to leave Russia, you have four options. Either to go to the surrounding countries of Russia, like Belarus, like Georgia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkey, through Turkish Airlines, and Dubai. And the fourth place is Israel. Israel and El Al are continuing to fly to Russia, and that mainly reason is because of the Olim that needs to come over here and the Jewish community. This is a vital link to make sure that those who want to make Aliyah will continue to be able to do so. We also, when we saw that the Aliyah numbers are increased in Russia, we opened a system called no go, meaning in a very preliminary examination, you can see if you're going to be eligible to make Aliyah in the future. So we offered the Olim to come to Israel as tourists. We give them insurance of healthcare, and over here they will do the transition to be Olim. We developed that system because we saw that the urgency of the people who wants to make Aliyah. Next slide, please. That's the go no go. As you can see, we do it online today, very accessible, and helping the Olim that doesn't want, by the way, even to come to the offices because they don't want to expose themselves, to do it on a digital way. Next, please. So bringing the Olim to Israel is a huge effort. As I told you, hotels in surrounding Ukraine, flight from Russia, more than 4,000 Olim per month. Our staff is very, very busy. But this is only part of the picture, and my colleagues over here will speak about the challenges that we're facing in the absorption. And to bring the Olim, it's complicated, but I think now the biggest challenge is to make sure that they will stay in Israel. I've been asked a lot of time, how many of them are going back, will go back? My answer is they are now in Israel. If we'll do a good job, they will stay for the future. So those are the programs that the Jewish Agency are running in terms of proposing the Olim program that we are helping them to absorb properly, either in our Young Olim program, as you can see over here, more than 500 Olim. In the regular years, by the way, we are about half of that, 200, 250. We doubled the number of young adults, by the way, 70% with academic background, very contributing to the society. We have opened our absorption center for Olim from Ukraine and from Belarus and from Russia, and professional training program. Juan will speak about it furthermore, but our main focus is to make sure that those who are coming to our program will have sufficient ability to provide themselves for the future. And Alex will speak a lot, so I want to just one sentence about it. We don't want to repeat the mistakes of the 90s where the Olim came and got stuck in the lowest income position in Israel. We are a stronger country. We are a better country now. So now we need to make sure that the Olim that are coming will be well trained for the future. So that's why we offer certain programs of employment for our Olim. Please, the next one. So I'll ending by saying, for those of you, we remember that we are still facing the future. The future is still very vague from our point of view. Our efforts will continue. Our mission is that every Jew wants to make Aliyah, regardless what the situation will be. A war, a crisis will continue. And we can see the numbers over here. It will continue. We are not still in Shelach et Ami, let my people go. But I think that we are getting close to that. And for that reason, we need to be ready for the future. And together with the wonderful colleagues over here, we need to tackle the challenge of the absorption. This is our main responsibility. We brought them to Israel. Let's make sure that they will stay in Israel. Toda rabba. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shay. What a perfect introduction that you've laid out for our next speakers. And Alex immigrated, our next speaker, Alex Riff, immigrated to Israel from the Ukraine in 1991 at the age of 5, and she has made it her life's mission to make social diversity accepted and celebrated in Israel. A social entrepreneur, activist, and community organizer, Alex has held a variety of positions and found tremendous success as an activist, storyteller, social hacker, and public policy official, all while working to amplify unheard voices of immigrants from the former Soviet Union countries. She has led employment policy for marginalized populations at the Ministry of Economy and created Generation 1.5 about the 90s former Soviet Union immigration that Shay just talked about, From the Eyes of the Children, which was broadcasted in April 2022 on Israel Public Broadcasting Corporation and was recognized by Globe Business newspapers in 2018 as one of the 20 most influential Israeli female activists. Today, Alex is the founder and CEO of the 1 Million Lobby, the first and only Israeli lobby to advocate for a better social, economic, and cultural reality for the 1.2 million immigrants of the former Soviet Union. Alex.
Thank you so much, Naomi. Thank you, everyone, for this important meeting. Thank you, Shay, for a partner for this introduction. So, as an immigrant by myself, as an Ola Chadasha from the 90s, we know very well, as Shay said, the troubles that our parents and we ourselves have been through. And when we established 1 Million Lobby 2 years ago, what we wanted is to make a different story, to different life for our parents and for ourselves in Israel. So let's please open the presentation, and I'll shortly will tell you what we do and what we're going to do with this immigration. We can go to the first slide. So 1 Million Lobby, as Naomi said, is the organization of the children. We can continue forward. And what we're doing is we're advocating the needs and wants. So we're doing it in social and economics, in religion and state. I'll tell a sentence about the law of return, which is very influencing the discourse on Olim right now, education and culture, and of course, Absorption and Aliyah. Let's continue. Okay, so as Shay said, these are the numbers. It's in Hebrew, but you can see the numbers are 70. So let's speak about this immigration wave. Okay, we have an emergency immigration, which is most of these people that came to Israel never asked to make immigration, to make Aliyah earlier. They didn't want to come. They're coming because of the war, which means that now we have to help them decide to stay in Israel. Now we see that this immigration wave, unlike our parents, if they will not get absorbed, they will not stay. And we'll tell you some details about it. But we see that they have options. They can go to a different country. They can go back to Ukraine and Russia. But we have to help them get absorbed in Israel. We see that some organizations, and even in some point our government, is trying to differ between two groups. The Ukrainians are sometimes being called as the good immigrants, the good Olim, and the Russians are sometimes being called the bad. You can see it in a lot of media publications. The Russians are coming and going, they're leaving, maybe they're going, maybe they don't really want to come. And this is a problem because these two groups already have some tensions between them, and we have to see in Israel how we connect them together and not speak more of the same language. We see that the people that are coming from Russia have problems with the banking system because they're coming with a small equity in the bank, but in the banks they have a lot of trouble to transfer money because of the sanctions, and they can sell things. So they're sometimes going and coming and going to Russia. So sometimes they are being looked at, maybe you don't want to come, maybe you're just using the money you got from Israel and leaving. But this is just because it's a very unique immigration, because they still have equities and businesses and families in Russia that they didn't sell because they know that they can transfer money. So this is pretty much the short opening about this immigration wave. So what we did when the war broke is we met the prime minister and the president to open a talk and a plan for this immigration wave. We understood that unlike the 90s, we want this discourse to be with us. We want us, the children and the immigration that knows the details, to be part of the decision-making table and to influence the things that are being decided on our behalf. So the first thing we did is actually something that was led by the Jewish Agency, by Shay Felber. We joined with Shay Felber and with the Ministry of Aliyah, and we wrote a strategic plan for optimal integration of the Aliyah from Ukraine and Russia. The first time that this kind of plan was written by Deloitte company. So before we didn't know what the problems were, and after we knew what the problems and how can we tackle them. So I'll tell you shortly a little bit about every problem and how it is like today. We see first thing is Ulpan. Ulpan up until today has huge problems. We have the large options of Ulpan with what we call is 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, 5 months. It's the best option to study language, to study Hebrew. If you don't know Hebrew, you can't actually absorb in a new country. But we see that the teachers are very low paid. We have hundreds of teachers that are not working because the payment is so low. We have a lack of places to teach Ulpan. So we have huge problems up until today. Almost 3,500 Olim Chadashim are waiting for Ulpan to open. So we have a situation of people that are waiting for months, and their sal klita, their absorption basket is over, and they haven't finished, sometimes even haven't started working, learning their language. So we have vouchers. We have an option to take a voucher and to go study in a private ulpan, but this is not an optimal option because it's 2-3 times a week, couple of hours. And for many people who really want to, an academic who wants to stay in this field of expertise, he needs a full ulpan. So this is a problem that we're tackling specifically today. We were in the committee in Knesset speaking about that, and we have now negotiating between the Ministry of Aliyah to get the salaries of the teachers higher. So this is one big problem, language. Now let's speak about employment, right? So what are the 3 big things that will leave a person in a country, right? Is the language, is the employment. So let's speak about employment. Employment is maybe the biggest second problem because Israel doesn't know how to absorb, how to take academics and to leave them, to get them work in their field of expertise. She doesn't know how to do it in mass immigration, right? So organization like Gvahim, like you're gonna soon listen, they can do it, but the government doesn't know how to do it. So we have doctors, even as doctors, having so much trouble they need to go through so they can continue work as doctors, and a lot of people just drop. So unlike the 90s, the dropout will be leave to a different country. So the things that the government should do, and that's what we're advocating, is open specific plans for this academic to get them absorbed in a place of work immediately. So the ulpan will be on the go. So they will not learn half a year, but they will study ulpan in the job. It's like on the job studying and learning and working. And of course, that the government will help subsidize part of this worker's salary for the first 1 or 2 years, so he could stay there for good. As I say, we have problems with banking systems, so we're working on solving them so that Olim will not have trouble to open an account, to transfer money, so they have the ability to understand how much money they can move and transfer and have a sense of freedom in their lives in the new country. We have a lot of issues of mental health. A lot of the new Olim are having trouble with this issue. And the last thing I'll talk about is the public opinion, but I just want to give you some important, we had a study about the new Olim, the now Aliyah. So see how we asked what their social, occupational, and linguistic status of the new Olim. So this is the data that we found. First of all, a lot of times they're being said that this is an immigration of opportunists and Israeli passport issuers. Like they don't want to stay, they're just coming and leaving. So we showed that more than 22% coming to Israel, seeing Israel as the place of they want to build their home in. But 44.8% of them says that their decision to stay depends on their degree of absorption. How Shay said, it's not enough to bring them. If we won't help them absorb and make big differences in the system right now, they won't stay. And the milliards of shekels that are being spent and they're bringing them here will just go to waste. We'll see that when we ask people what will actually help them decide to stay, as I said, preserve their previous standard of life, finding a job on their profession, learning a language. This is the 3 main issues. We see that 83% of the Olim came and they have a family and friends here. So they're not disconnected. They have community, they're coming to the community. We see, as I told you, that the situation of learning language is very bad. Only 28% of the Olim are currently studying in a full ulpan. We see that only 11%, and we see this a year to the war, is working in Israel, which is a very low numbers. And we see that a lot of the people are looking for a job and while they're studying, which means that the system in Israel, you have to study language first and then work, is not adequate to most of the Olim today. We see that a lot of problems. We see that 43% can't afford their cost of living. We see that 64% are suffering, knows someone that are suffering from panic attacks or nightmares due to war. And we see that when we ask, were you in a connection to the Jewish community in your country of origin, 40.3% said yes. And this is the last thing I want to say. The discourse in Israel now is on the law of return. We always say it's a big mistake because it's being done over the heads of this immigration, which means that this is what these children are going to listen to in schools. You don't belong here. You're the law of return of the grandchild section is being canceled, so you don't need to be here. And we see that we have to not do this in a war. We're saying that this is very bad for this immigration wave. And we see that even though when we look at the 90s, 24% of the Olim define themselves as Jews. And when we look at this immigration wave, it's not that different. 70% of this immigration wave in the day of their immigration or a couple of months after that see themselves as Jewish, which means, that the beginning point is a very good one. So we need to see how can we strengthen that in them? How can we open their eyes for this cultural Jewish heritage we have in Israel and not close the gate for them, which is what the public and the government tries to do now. And what we're doing in 1 Million Lobby is actually advocating and meeting with a lot of rabbis, a lot of politicians to explain what has to be done. We have to open the gate. We have to get these people closer to Judaism and not close the gate on them. That's me. Thank you.
Alex, again, it's a perfect lead into our next speaker, and you gave us so much information there that I hate to use the word absorb here since we're using it more for klita, but it has really two meanings here for us to learn and absorb all this information. Juan Taifeld was born and raised in the Jewish community of Mexico City. He made Aliyah in 1991 without his family and embarked upon university studies. After completing his undergraduate and graduate work at Tel Aviv University in political science and leadership education, he received a second master's in public administration from Harvard Kennedy School of Government. Juan worked for 8 years as a market analyst at the commercial department of the Spanish Embassy in Tel Aviv, promoting commercial relationships between the two countries. In 2001, he left a promising career offered by the Israel Export Institute and moved into the education field. Juan has held various positions working with Mexican and Latin American youth, including working at the Jewish Agency, the educational NGO Hanoar Hatzioni, and Masa, where he founded one of the most successful Masa programs in Mexico and Latin America, called Israel Challenge. He's a board member of the only Jewish university in Latin America and has worked with a network of Jewish schools and youth movements. Since 2018, Juan has been the CEO of Gvahim, an Israeli NGO which connects highly skilled new immigrants from all over the world to the labor market in Israel. Gvahim is the leading organization helping Olim from Russia and the Ukraine. In 2022, the organization connected 1,000 Olim to proper jobs in Israel with an 85% successful placement rate. Juan.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Naomi, and thank you very much for the American Zionist movement for the opportunity to present the work that we are doing together with my colleagues. I don't know if you can please add the slideshows. Thank you. So first of all, I would like to say that when the Russian occupation started in Ukraine in February 24th, it was very, very clear that we will expect a huge wave of Olim coming into the country. So there were many organizations all over the world, and of course here in Israel, that they were more on the humanitarian side and they stay on the short term. But it was very important for us to see that we knew that many organizations or some initiatives will stop after 1, 2, 3 months. And it was very important for us to know that we will be here in the long term. And that's the reason what I want to tell you a little bit about the Gvahim. Next slide, if you can, please. So first of all, what is Gvahim? It's a non-profit organization that it was founded in 2006 in order to promote what I believe is the most important issue for a good integration in every country. And we're talking now about Aliyah and about Israel. Because when a person, he can find or she can find a proper job, this brings not only the parnasad, not only the resources, the monetary resources they need, they bring dignity, they decide where to live, and I have no doubt that a successful integration needs to come with a good preparation and a good entering into the professional side. So Gvahim, we develop a lot of relationship with with more than 1,000 companies in order to become really the largest organization helping Olim and connecting them into the labor market here, labor market here in Israel. So there are some numbers. We have more than 8,000 alumni. We measure ourselves as a placement rate because I think everything else is not so important. The most important issue is to find a proper job for Olim, and that's what we're doing. We are also working with a lot of mentors and volunteers that they are helping us to do our job. And as I mentioned before, we have more than 1,000 employing companies, mainly in the private sector, that are helping us to connect all the time Olim. And I think one of the issues that I feel very proud about is that we are helping Olim from all over the world. So maybe in the States, Nefesh B'Nefesh, or there are other organizations that are working just in several countries or several areas. But Gvahim we believe that every single Ole deserves the same treatment, and we need to help them because they are facing the same challenges. Next slide, please. Thank you. So here's the issue. Olim, when they're arriving into Israel, they are coming, as Alex and also Shay mentioned before, they are coming with a highly skilled people, a lot of degrees, but they are struggling to integrate because they are facing many issues. One of them is the language that we mentioned before. The second one is the different culture that they are coming from. And the third one is the lack of networking, right? So the solution is that we need to really connect them into a lot of networking events and lectures and workshops and mentorship. So, and of course, to bring in to company visits in order to really integrate them into the labor force. And of course, the result is a win-win situation, both for the Ole and for the Israeli economy. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so I want to tell you a little bit of what we have been doing for the last year since the beginning of the Russian occupation. So we have many programs in Gvahim, and we understood that we need to do something in Russian at the beginning for those who live. And we need to understand, as Alex mentioned before, those refugees, they didn't plan their Aliyah. They didn't want to come here. They didn't have a year or 6 months to plan their area. They came really in such an emergency that, and in such, they are coming from war situation that it's very challenging. By one side, I receive a lot of calls from Israeli employers that they were willing to bring Olim into the labor market, but by the other side, they didn't really understand that those Olim, they need to learn Hebrew. They are post-traumatic or even inside the trauma of the war, and they need some, soft landing immediately. The second issue is that it was really difficult, like for companies to hire people that they do not know the language. So we said, okay, we heard before that the ulpanim, the Hebrew ulpanim, weren't like very in a very high quality in some cases, and those people, they receive some money from the government. We call it sal klita, okay? But it was not enough. And I think that the government, they really tried to do some special issues thanks to the work of all my partners, but it was not enough. So as you may know, Israel is one of the most expensive countries in the world. Yeah, actually Tel Aviv was ranked #1 of the most expensive city in the world. So try to imagine for those people that they are coming without any economic resources, both Ukrainian and Russians also, trying to live here where, the government, they can offer them 2 months just of living in hotels or other places and giving them any other support, but it was not enough. So I think that it's very, very complex to understand that those people, they are inside the trauma, they do not have enough resources, and they want to stay in Israel. And as Shay mentioned, I think it's our duty to make all our efforts to remain them here and to make them to have a good integration into the country. So that's the reason what I strongly believe that to find them proper jobs, it's the most important solution, of course, together with all other issues that they are facing. But first of all, they need to find jobs. So we have a flagship program, we call it the Gvahim Career Center, where we were able to connect 600 former Soviet Union Olim to proper jobs. Again, one of the issues that I mentioned is that I believe that we need to see the Olim as asset and not as a liability. And that's the reason, many Olim that they came here, they came from the high-tech sector. And Israel, they have a lack of software engineers and electrical engineers here in Israel. Actually, there are, even today, that there is a kind of slowdown or, economic crisis. There are more than 15,000 open positions for software engineers. And many of them, they came from Russia and Ukraine. So we were able to connect to more than 250 software engineers into the high-tech companies. And, their salaries are very, very well paid. And that's the reason why we create a social mobility for those populations. And when I'm talking here about those numbers, of course, there are numbers that does not include family members. So every single number here, you can multiply by 3 on average. And of course, we understand that one size does not fit all, and we need to develop like several training programs. So we decided to open 3 pilot programs for some of the most demanded professions that are needed here in Israel. Believe it or not, there is a lack of bus drivers here in Israel, so we're able to open a first program for them, upskilling coding boot camp, so they will be able to enter into the high-tech sector, and also for the mechanical technicians. So more than 100 Olim found their professional path in Israel, thanks to the work that we're doing, of course, together with the Jewish Agency and other partners. Next slide, please. More. So as the way we work is that we do not fall in love with the solution. So we do not believe that our solution is the best that we have. We fell in love with the problem. And what I mean by that is that we need to pivot, we need to change and be very agile, very, very versatile in the way we understand those Olim. And that's the reason why we detect a problem that many Olim, especially those who wants to enter into the high-tech sector, they need a business English Ulpan. Okay, so let's do it. And because we are an NGO and we do not need, we are not government, we can just do it tomorrow. So we were able to deliver for many Olim business English Ulpan twice a week, 3 hours every day for 5 weeks. And it was a really success here. And I said at the beginning that we wanted to be for the long term, but we also understood that many Olim, they were also with basic needs and really, food and other issues. And we are in contact directly with the Olim. So we were able to give them more than $4,000 into food vouchers for Olim in need. It's not enough, but we're doing what we can. And as I mentioned, all our programs are running now in Russian and in English. Lectures, how the Israeli workforce, how you need to interview to a company, mentorship, that's very important. and so on. Next slide, please. So that's a summary. We were able to attend more than 1,000 Olim since the beginning of the war. And that's something that when you enter into all the family members, you can multiply by 3, as I mentioned before. Next slide. Okay, you can move this part of the companies. You can move to the next one. So I want that's a picture that I like very much. That those are Olim that we were helping them in Carmiel in the boot camp that I mentioned before. And you know, as the Rambam said, the highest form of tzedakah is to help someone to find a job or to set up a business. And the last slide that I wanted to mention you is that the last one, please. So we remember the pioneers as the one in the picture, you know, in the upper side, but I think the new pioneers are here in the lower part, and that's the reason why we're doing our best to integrate those Olim into the Israeli marketplace in Israel. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Shay. That last slide in particular is something I think we all need to remember. It really resonates with me and the chalutzim and chalutziot, and we are definitely still dealing with that just in a very different way. The next two speakers are going to work together, and I'm going to introduce them that way, and they're going to shift this conversation just a bit. Anna Zharova's main areas of expertise are business diplomacy, social entrepreneurship, business development, and consulting and management of projects on an international scale. For the last 5 years, Anna has been promoting educational business relations development between the Ukraine and Israel. She is a global Ukrainian network board member and CEO and co-founder of the Israeli-Ukrainian Alliance, the international platform that provides high-quality strategic entrepreneurships, as well as, of course, Israel Friends of the Ukraine. The IFU is dedicated to strengthening the relationship between Israel and the Ukraine and between Ukrainians and Jews by developing an effective cultural dialogue and promoting efforts to raise the awareness of Israelis about the current situation in Ukraine. Its core mission is to support the people of Ukraine in this challenging period. The flagship activities of the organization are focused on deepening the sense of national identity, developing Jewish-Ukrainian ties, as well as cooperating with the Jewish and Ukrainian diasporas worldwide. One of its current projects is a photo exhibition between war and peace, Israel and Ukraine, dedicated to the thin and fragile line separating peace from the atrocities of war. They also do seminars, conferences, and meetups with Ukrainian volunteers and public personalities, additional cultural activities, and vital medical and humanitarian aid for Ukrainians, such as the Medical Bridge. Anna observes the number of similarities between modern Israel and Ukraine. Both are fighting for their land, defending their independence, resisting an enemy, and craving for peace. We can see how the history of our young state inspires the Ukrainians. Olga Kartashova is a founder and coordinator of the Volunteer Help Center for the Ukrainian Refugees in Haifa, which has been operational since last February. In addition to her important work in Haifa, Olga is a Holocaust historian and is currently a PhD candidate in Hebrew and Judaic studies at NYU. Anna and Olga.
Okay, thank you very much, Naomi, and hello, everyone. First of all, I should say that it's thank you for the opportunity to share our reality and to be a voice of Ukrainian refugees in Israel. More words about Israeli Friends of Ukraine. This NGO was founded in 2014 as a reaction to Maidan events, Crimea occupation, and the military invasion of Russia to the east of Ukraine. So for us as Jewish who came from made Aliyah from Ukraine, the war has been started in 2014. So Israeli Friends of Ukraine is the largest organization that represents a Jewish Ukrainian community. And since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russian military forces, our NGO has been providing constant support for the Ukrainian people by sending humanitarian aid, by organizing demonstrations and protests, by involving media and advocating for Ukraine and helping and support refugees. If we are speaking about refugees, Ukrainian refugees, I'd like to say 2 words about the numbers. So from the February to Israel came about 35,000 Ukrainians, and for now it's about 14,000 Ukrainians that who don't have right to make Aliyah. Okay, they stayed in Israel without any official status. If we look at the percentage, 77% of those refugees are women. 27% it's children. 27% it's children and teenagers, and 28% it's pensioners. So I think there is, it should be said that there is some misunderstanding in definition when we are speaking about refugees. Because in Israel, it's common to say that all Ukrainians who have escaped the war, they are refugees. But in a minute they come to Israel, they are separated into 2 different groups. One group with the rights of being civilians or being a part of Israel, because they may make Aliyah and they have all the rights. And those refugees who don't have any rights in Israel, they stay without the status of refugees because Israel doesn't recognize their refugee status. They there's a lot of supporting organizations like Jewish agency, like Gvahim. I know that Gvahim make a wonderful work for refugees as well. But Ministry of Aliyah, all these supporting organizations, they put all their efforts to help Olim, new Olim from Ukraine. But there is a great amount of people also who escaped the war and ran from the war, stay in Israel almost without any rights. If we are talking about profile of those refugees, it should be said that they live on on hold. Okay, they when we ask them, almost a lot of people say that they want to come back to Ukraine, but for now there is no conditions and they understand that they should stay here. They don't have any possibility to work or to to provide their children and their families in Israel. It's they speak about abandonment and loneliness. So they feel being alone and struggling and facing all the difficulties of being in a new country. And Alex represented in very right light what Olim Hadashim face in Israel. And we should understand that all these Olim Hadashim get all the support of system government and NGOs, and Ukrainian refugees without rights don't get it. So that's so important, the community, okay, the community of being and sense of belonging, because our organization, we all came from former Soviet Union. Okay, we defined ourselves as Jews, Jewish, yes, but still we have by origin we're from Ukraine, and our organization is provides such community, and we are the address, the main address for those who don't have support in Israel for today. And Olga will represent the Haifa Center.
Great, thank you, Anna. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for inviting us and giving us this opportunity. Can we share the slides, please? Yeah, thank you so much. So I'm a founder and a coordinator of the Volunteering Center in Haifa. that helps Ukrainian refugees. We are a project of Israeli Friends of Ukraine. We're working officially under their auspices. So we kind of part of the organization now, even though the project started as a, ground up the initiative that did not have any organizational backing at first. So can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so our main goal to support Ukrainians who escape war, and these include both the Olim from Ukraine and refugees without the right for return. Next. Yeah, we started our work at the beginning of March as an ad hoc initiative because we saw that the refugees who are coming from Ukraine are basically left alone and they do not receive any assistance. So what we do since March, we distribute food packages and hygienic products, clothing, household items, electrical appliances. We also provide informational support for medical services, legal services about employment and about the childcare. As someone mentioned already, people who escaped Ukraine often came with small bags and they did not have any belongings with them. So it's important for us to provide them with the most basic goods. Also, at the moment, our center is organizing free Hebrew classes. We have 3 groups already, like 20 people each. So it's about 60 refugees who are studying Hebrew. This is thanks to volunteering teachers, and we are able to provide it free of charge. And we also do some workshops, picnics, tours, organize events for children and adults. Next slide. Our team is comprised of about 70 volunteers. We speak Hebrew, English, Arabic, Ukrainian, Belarusian, and Russian. And over half of our volunteers, and probably 70% of those who are on a daily duty in the center, these are Ukrainian refugees and Olim themselves. So people who came since February 2022, and they became our volunteers, they became part of our community. As Anna already mentioned, this is one of our main goals, to create a space where people can come, where they can find support and share their problems. Next. So since March, approximately until the end of January, approximately 1,444 families, which could be something multiplied by 3, as we heard already. At least we have families from 1 to 7 people registered in our database. Next slide. The status of our visitors is approximately 40% Olim from Ukraine and 40% of refugees from Ukraine. Others include families with mixed status, where some of them are immigrants, some of them do not have right for Aliyah. Toshavim Chozarim, or returning citizens, some students, and some refugees who are not sure yet if they want to make Aliyah or not, so they are staying without the status. Next. So our center is working like 3 times a week. We invite people to come to us and ask questions and get food. So as you can see, monthly from 400 to 800 visits we receive at our center. Next slide. Yeah. So our partners include UNHCR, HIAS, Yad Nadiv, ASAF, of course, Israeli Friends of Ukraine, and other organizations. We also work closely with the Beit Oleh in Haifa. Next. The main issues I would like to mention today, and of course we don't have much time, but I just want these things to be heard, that the Ukrainian refugee do not have a refugee status. They remain on the tourist visa, and they do not have any governmental support in terms of payments and in terms of regular assistance. Over 60% of people do not have a valid health insurance. Since August 2022, Israeli government provides health insurance only to those who are over 60 years old, and others remain without any medical support. They have some access to clinics for, sorry, can we go back? Yeah, thank you. But the access is rather poor. The employment is really difficult. And since 1st of October, all Ukrainians who arrived to Israel have ban on their work. So currently we have an issue that they cannot work legally in Israel. It's prohibited. So they don't receive payments and they cannot work. Bank system is refusing refugees. They cannot open bank accounts, even if they have jobs. The childcare access is limited, and no special treatment is provided for Ukrainian new immigrants, even though they escaped extreme conditions. Next slide. So you can help us if you'd like. You can donate to our program. You can become our partner. I will be more than happy to schedule meetings. And you can help us lobby for refugee rights in Israel. Thank you so much. I'm going to share this presentation and my email address in the chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you to both of you. I wish we had more time to get deeper into all of these issues, and there are lots of questions that have been sent to us. I'm going to try and focus on some questions here that we can get some direct answers from our amazing panelists. But I urge everyone to research the other questions, or we'll find out ways to get you some answers at a later time. Before I put these questions together, I would like to welcome Karina Polinskaya, who represents one of the AZM member organizations, the American Forum for Israel, formerly known as the American Forum for Russian-speaking Jewry. And I'm going to ask her to ask this first question.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. My name is Karina Polinskaya. I also work for the WZO, World Zionist Organization, and I'm a programming director for the Department of Promotion of Aliyah. And I have a question for Anna Zharova and also for the head of Safnut. We know that a large number of Ukrainians who are now coming to the United States through the humanitarian program, Uniting for Ukraine, U4U it's called, and many of them are Jewish. How can we combine forces with the Ukrainian U4U program and the American Jewish Agency program to help those people to make Aliyah, those who are eligible, and have an exceptionally smooth process of immigrating from United States to Israel? Because we understand
Karina,
that.
I'm going to stop you there because
Sure.
that's a question that could be a whole other hour anyway.
I agree.
So
I agree.
I'm going to let Shay answer that very, very briefly, and then turn to some questions that really are more about this program, and leave that for another whole session.
Yeah, we just need another discussion about that.
Yes,
that's for sure. Thank you.
Shay.
Shalom, Karina.
Shalom.
Shalom, shalom. I will say that today Ukrainians and Russians that are making Aliyah have certain exemptions of documents they need to bring, because we understand they're running away from the war and not everything is with their hands, the ability to present. So we have a special process, either they go, no go, which I explained earlier, or if someone ran from Ukraine is now in the States or in Germany, we have an expedited process and it can be exempt from certain documents they need to bring. For example, sometimes we check the eligibility according to family members in Israel because he couldn't bring with him the proof of Judaism. So we have ways how to help those Olim that wants to come, although they've been turning a long way. So be happy to discuss it. Everyone from Ukraine or Russia who left and is now on his way to Israel, we will support him, we will help him in a very speed and effective way.
Thank you. I'm going to group questions into groups of 3 here, and we're going to try very briefly to answer this. As I said, I know that we could go on here forever. The first one, Shay, really is what is the status of the Jewish agency in Russia today? And that also follows into a question which similarly relates to Russia, which is, what do the groups here on this call feel that the stance of the Israeli government should be in this war? Should, for example, Israel remain neutral? I'm going to go through the panel. Shay, I'm going to go to you first, and then if someone else has something to say on those, they can just jump in, and we're just going to give this one a few minutes.
So regarding Russia, our status, the Jewish Agency is a local NGO in Russia. In July, we've been issued a letter from the Ministry of Justice in Russia that because of certain violation of the local law, we need to be shut down. That happened in July. As you can see, up to now, we are still continuing and operating in Russia. I would say that we have a legal process that we're handling. It's not only a process that the Jewish Agency is holding. We got support from the Israel Ministry of Foreign Affairs and for Israel Ministry of Justice. So we are heading that process for almost 6 months from now. And every month or so, we're meeting in the Russian court, and we get another extension of another month or two to operate. We are continuing to operate, by the way, currently. There's no changes as we're doing it. We all can understand, and I will say it in a very delicate way, that we are not convinced that the legal problem of the Jewish Agency are the one who are causing that situation. We understand that there may be other interests, there may be other reasons why the Russians are acting the way they're acting towards the Jewish Agency. So we are dealing with that. We are dealing it on the legal basis, but as you can see, also the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is involved because we understand this is a higher problem and a more difficult thing than only the Jewish Agency. Regarding your second question, I think this is something that I will, I'm not sure I want to relate to in terms of Israel's stand regarding the war in Ukraine. There are other politicians who can speak about it, maybe my other friends, but we all understand that this situation is a very complicated one. No matter what we will say, no matter what we will do, we need to take into consideration many interests of many players in Israel, in Ukraine, in Russia, and in the region.
Anyone else want to jump in?
I want to add about Israel's position regarding this war. I know there's a lot of issues, and we as an organization that leads even demonstrations and all the time come to government and asking more to support Ukraine. It should be said that Jewish community in Ukraine is the biggest in Europe. So we see Jewish rabbis and that Jewish leaders of Jewish community are very involved in advocating for Ukraine. So it should be we should to understand or to remember that it's not only this war, not only about Ukrainians and some country that there is no ties or there is no bond between Israel and Ukraine. There's a lot of Jewish people that even come from this war to Israel, and we see the losses with their losses, and we see how they are really survived in this war. So I think my personal opinion and the position of our organization that Israel should be more involved in this in supporting Ukraine today.
If anyone wants to jump in very briefly, they can, or I'm going to go to the next one. I know that this is also an issue of great implications. Anyone to jump in, or can I move on? I'm going to move on. Okay. Thank you for that. The second group of questions has to do with a combination of what Olim can do when they get to Israel and how they find out about the support. So some are interested to know what is the freedom of the Olim when they arrive. Can they, and even the refugees, are they sent to cities and towns like was in the beginning of the state of Israel, or are they allowed to choose where they live? And how do they learn about the services of Gvahim? And are they told that there are better services in certain cities and towns over others?
Shay, Baksha.
No. I just might answer the first answer, and then about how do they find themselves in Israel, and then Juan will relate to the job market. Today, most of the Olim, more than 80%, have relatives in Israel or friends. And they're coming, I would say, not from the Ukraine. The Ukraine, as everyone mentioned, they're coming in a rush. But the Olim coming today from Russia have friends and relatives, so they consult first where to come. Usually they go to their relatives. Also from Ukraine as well. They got friends and relatives. And after the initial setup, they will look maybe for a place to go where the job market is easier. But it was another day that we took them by buses and told them this is where you need to go, and this is where you're going to stay for the rest of your stay. We do provided hotels for the first month for the refugees and for the Olim, and then they had a month to accumulate and to decide where they want to go.
Yeah, so I just want to add on the words that Shay mentioned. I didn't present a slide that I found it very interesting that most of the those Olim who arrived in 2022, they came into coastal areas. Yeah, so for example, the most important city who receive Olim is Haifa, and then Netanya and Tel Aviv and Ashdod and Ashkelon, also Jerusalem and Beersheba, but in minor numbers. But as Shay mentioned before, we are not in the 50s and we're not even 90s. So the way the Olim that are coming to the country, so they receive this basket help from financial aid from the Ministry of Aliyah and Integration, and also they receive also a special support, financial support for housing. So they need to go to the private local market and find themselves, finding an apartment as every single Israeli. It's not easy, yeah, because sometimes you need to present warranties and they do not have, or sometimes they need to open a bank account. As Alex previously mentioned, it's not so easy for them. But they need to find, and yes, it's true at the beginning they are finding some friends and family where they can stay. But at the end of the day, they need to find that. Now, the reason regarding the employment side, that it was one of the questions. So first of all, they are hearing from word of mouth, and we have a lot of awareness events. And, all the organizations, most of the organizations, they have heard about Gvahim. So they are, sending all the Olim to our organization. We're more than glad to deal with them. So we are now, overwhelmed with a lot of requests from Olim coming into our organization.
Thank you. Anyone else want to add? I'll say that Alex has a sick child, and so if you're wondering why she's perhaps quiet now when she wouldn't be, we go back to the struggles that all of us deal with in the world today. And so, but she has offered to send us some other replies, which we can forward to those on the call at a later time. And of course, we hope that her adorable child is better soon. So I'm going to ask, it's 2:11, and I promised we would be off by 2:15. I don't know if this is possible, but there are many, many questions asking about the difference, of course, between the Olim and the refugees. And of course, what is coming up a lot has to do with, is it just because the refugees are not Jewish? And do we really think that even if we could bring and give them all the support that they needed, that they would still want to stay? I know this is a silly thing to say, but I'm going to give you 2.5 minutes, Olga and Anna, to answer this question. And of course, as always, I urge everyone on this call to research those issues. There is a lot being written about this elsewhere, and it is I think an issue, a question that many are really worried about and thinking about and disagreeing about as well.
Olga, do you want to be first?
Yeah, if I may. So what we see, basically, it's very similar to the situation with Olim. All the refugees who came here, and this was initially the only possibility, because that was made an official requirement to make an invitation from someone who lives and resides in Israel, so that a person who is not Jewish could come on a tourist visa from Ukraine. Otherwise, they were deported immediately from the airport. So all the people that come here, they have relatives. Often it's elderly parents of Israeli children who do not have right for return, or they have friends, or they have nobody else elsewhere in any other country. So we see the situation is that Israel creates the conditions for them, so they get sick of this and just leave. But many of these people have nowhere to go because they know somebody here, they have family members here, and they have nobody in Europe. And it's not a huge amount of people, it's not millions like in Poland. We're speaking about several thousand, and they are not being cared for. They are being ignored and deprived of basic human rights for basic goods and basic support.
Maybe it's an ugly truth to say, but it should be said. Yes, Israel doesn't provide or doesn't want non-Jewish people to be in Israel and to come to Israel. So there's a lot of conditions that were made by the Ministry of Internal Right, by government to make the life of refugees as difficult as possible. Even with the support of government, it should be said that they joined one of the organizations with Savasha. This was a program for supporting refugees, Ukrainian refugees without rights to claim the citizenship, but still it's a drop in the sea, if I can say. So for now, all the programs that were approved by the last government, today all these programs closed up or not deleted, but shut up. And so we really, there's few organizations in Israel, we can count on the fingers, who help and really support refugees who don't have any rights in Israel. Not insurance, not to right to work, not right to send people, to send children to schools. Yeah.
It's 2:50 and I'm going to cut you off. The questions are coming in and there's so many good ones. And I think it's a successful event when there are more questions coming in at the end and it's not just quieting off. So I want to thank everyone for participating in this informative hour. I want to thank our panelists, of course, and as well to Alicia Post, AZM's National Program and Communications Director, Ariana Heidemann for her technical support, and of course the AZM's Executive Director, Herbert Block, for their help in all of this program and what we do every day. Stay tuned for information on 2 exciting AZM programs in March, including one on March 14th entitled, What Would Ben Yehuda Think of Hebrew Today? Looking at Hebrew as we remember the 100th yahrzeit of Eliezer Ben Yehuda. Thank you again to all of you. This has been a wonderful 75 minutes. Toda rabah and lehitraot.
Thank you very much.